Hello and welcome to News 9 Facebook Live with me, Adarsh Vepachedu. Now, the entire global scientific community is doing all it can to not just curb the spread of the dreaded coronavirus, but also find a vaccine at the earliest. Up until now, we have seen people getting infected, undergoing home or institutional quarantine, develop antibodies with the right kind of treatment, and eventually defeat the virus. While we may think that this is all there is to it, in the latest, we have an added challenge of reinfection that has come to the fore. Yes, a 25-year-old man from Nevada, United States, is the first known case of reinfection in the country. Now, he had first tested positive in the month of April after reporting mild illness, sore throat and a headache. But he got sick again in late May and developed a more severe form of COVID-19. 48 days after his first positive test, he received a second one. So, what does it mean for you and I? What does it mean for the vaccine developers? And how could this new update coming in from the United States change our COVID treating policy right here in India? To touch some of these subjects, we have with us Dr. Pratik Patil, who is an infectious diseases expert. Many thanks, Doctor, for joining us. My first question. A case of reinfection despite presence of antibodies in this particular person and a more severe form of COVID-19 is what we're talking about. Are reinfections possible due to the fact that 100% immunity is not possible? And could you be reinfected by a different strain of coronavirus? Kindly paint the big picture for us whether we should be worried or not at this point in time.
Hi, good afternoon. So, yes, as per what you said, reinfection is possible. There are two reasons why reinfection is possible. First, if the person who doesn't develop immunity following the first infection, they can still get infection with the similar type of virus or a different type of virus. Okay, that's one. Because due to any reason, if they don't mount an response following the first infection, and there are some people, despite having the immunity after the first infection, if the different virus attacks them or they get exposed to a virus which is different in the genetical structure, still they can get an infection. I mean, we don't know many cases like this, but after the recent this case, we know that theoretically such possibilities always existed, but now it's suggested by the given case as well. So these both scenarios are possible, and but again, how often this is going to happen, we don't know. This is obviously one off case, and not very often this phenomenon is noted so far, because we have seen millions of cases so far, and this is not definitely a very frequent phenomenon.
So it's one-off, but again, we're talking about a person who had antibodies. So it almost seems as if it all boils down to the kind of mutation of the coronavirus that person is dealing with. Now, in case of reinfections itself, another important aspect that could take a beating, if I were to say that, is the vaccine development. How efficient would the vaccines that are currently under development be against such reinfections? And given the fact that it is happening so quickly, in the sense that it's not taken more than 48 days for the person to get reinfected again. Again, another important aspect here is not too long ago, we had the Cambridge University say that the vaccine that they are working on can fight all forms of coronaviruses. Can we say, rest assured at this point in time, what are the likely challenges on the vaccine front, Doctor?
Yes, obviously it is concerning on the vaccine front that whether the vaccine which is being developed will target all the coronaviruses or only the SARS-CoV-2, that's your COVID virus. But again, if the genetic mutation happens, only the vaccination, the people researching on the vaccine will be able to tell us whether the vaccine will act on genetically different SARS-CoV-2 viruses. So we don't have that much information in public domain so far.
So if I were to follow up, if I were to follow up on that, could we see a case where vaccine developers may take a little time off and focus on these reinfections and somehow try to develop their vaccines to somehow deal with reinfections in a better way? Could we see that happening, or would we continue at the same pace when it comes to the development of vaccines?
So I think that that will happen. But again, see, vaccine is targeted at different areas. There are different vaccines, and there are focusing on different areas of virus where the vaccine will act and develop the immunity accordingly. So it needs to see which protein is the vaccine targeting and whether it is a common protein for SARS-CoV or different coronaviruses. If it's the same protein that is going to develop the immunity against all coronaviruses, then I don't think there may be a reason to worry. But if it is one particular protein that is getting mutated, and if the vaccine was planned for targeting only that protein, obviously the vaccine will not work if the protein changes, So it depends on the target protein for a particular vaccine or different targets if they have some more targets.
So, Doctor, it almost seems as if we may have to arrive at multiple vaccines to be able to deal with multiple strains of coronavirus, if I were to say that. Again, coming to another very pertinent point, while reinfection not so common at this point in time, it is rare in your own words, but could we be looking at a possibility where reinfections could become common, widespread, and what kind of preparations or policy changes should we see to be able to tackle a possible wave of reinfection? Kindly throw light on that, sir.
Yes, I think with the time we may see more and more cases of reinfection, particularly the reason being, we don't know, once somebody gets a COVID infection, we don't know how long the immunity sustains, So if it is 3 months, after 3 months, if the immunity wanes, you can still get infected, isn't it? So I think, again, I would underline here that your basic preventive measures like your hand hygiene, your respiratory etiquettes, and social distancing will still form the basic things to keep the virus away. So that is something we cannot change, and we cannot we cannot forget that.
Yes, indeed, Doctor. It's almost as if the one common notion that people are beginning to have is once you get coronavirus infected and if you've overcome it, then you're done and dusted. There's no possibility that you could get reinfected. So that has to be allayed, and people have to really take all kinds of precautions, even if they've really overcome the virus.
Absolutely, yes. So even if somebody gets cured or recovers completely from COVID, they should not drop their guards. They should continuously be vigilant and still practice all the measures which they have to do even without COVID.
Right.
So nobody is safe even after getting COVID in that case.
Right. So there you have it. That's the bottom line right there. Even if you've recovered from coronavirus infection, you should not let your guard down. You should ensure that you're taking all the precautionary measures. You just heard it from Dr. Pratik Patil, infectious diseases expert. Many thanks, sir, for joining us on this broadcast and for throwing light on the new update coming in from the United States as to how a 25-year-old man has tested positive for coronavirus once again. Twice he has tested positive, and yes, it could affect the vaccine development, the kind of vaccines that are being worked on at this point in time, and we could also see a couple of policy changes. But the thing that we must keep in mind is that despite the fact that you may have overcome coronavirus infection, you could catch it again, and hence we should ensure that we're taking all kinds of precautionary measures while we are out and about going about our day. If you've liked the information that we have shared with you, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to News9 on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and Twitter as well. Many thanks for joining us.